Imagine a young Jewish orphan, raised in secrecy, who suddenly finds herself crowned queen of the greatest empire in the world. It sounds like a movie plot, but it's pure biblical reality. This is the story of Esther, or rather, Hadassah, her hidden name. While the world saw her as a Persian queen, her heart beat for a persecuted people. And the most fascinating part? God works behind the scenes, not appearing in a single verse of the book of Esther, yet moving every piece on the board. Behind the crown and the riches lay mortal danger. If her Jewish identity were discovered, she and her people would be wiped out. Esther lived a double life. Secret identities in the Bible aren't just for modern superheroes. Mordecai, her adoptive father, warned her, "Hide your past." But why such caution? In an empire where Haman, the story's villain, plotted genocide, being Jewish was a death sentence. And here's the lesson that cuts deep. How often do we hide our true selves out of fear? Whether in family, work, or even faith, we mask who we are. Esther could have settled into the palace's luxury, but something inside her, that rare biblical courage few understand, compelled her to face the danger. She didn't know it, but she stood at the heart of a hidden miracle. Think about it. How many coincidences led Esther to the throne? Queen Vashti's banishment, the beauty pageant, Mordecai's protection. None were accidents. This was faith in crisis in action. Esther proves God works behind the scenes, even when he seems silent. And you? Ever wondered if your coincidences are pieces of a divine puzzle? Now hold on to this suspense. What would you do in her place? Risk your head to save those you love? The story is about to explode, because Haman has the knife and the cheese in hand, and Mordecai won't bow. So, ready to discover how one woman changed the destiny of an entire people? The book of Esther unfolds against a breathtaking backdrop. The Persian Empire, at the height of its power, ruled by King Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes. The Jews had been living there in exile since the fall of Jerusalem, strangers in a foreign land and often easy targets. Imagine the tension. A people without a homeland, struggling to preserve their traditions in a culture that didn't understand them. It was like swimming against the tide, yet God was working behind the scenes, even when no one could see it. Then came a pivotal moment. Queen Vashti's banishment for publicly defying the king. Ahasuerus' wounded pride led to a royal decree. Bring the most beautiful maidens in the kingdom to compete for a new queen. And so Hadassah, the young Jewish woman raised by Mordecai, entered the palace. But here's a detail many overlook. She wasn't driven by ambition. This was a strategic move, or perhaps a hidden miracle in the making. Picture the scene. Hundreds of women prepped for months with oils, perfumes, and royal training. Yet Esther had an edge. Mordecai guided her from the shadows like a mentor, while the others vied for favor. She simply was herself. And guess what? The king was captivated. Sometimes, authenticity is the best strategy, a lesson that still holds true today. How often do you try too hard to force situations when simplicity would suffice? But here's the twist. Esther concealed her true identity. Her Persian name was a facade. Inside, she remained Hadassah, a myrtle, a symbol of resilience and hope. Mordecai knew revealing her origins would be suicide. Anti-Semitism was already festering, and Haman hadn't even entered the story yet. Sound familiar? How many people today must mask who they are just to survive in certain spaces? Now, brace yourself. As Esther adapted to palace life, Mordecai uncovered a sinister plot brewing in the halls of power. Someone was about to ruin everything, and only one woman, seemingly fragile, could stop the tragedy. Would she find the courage in the Bible to rise to the challenge? Behind the name Esther, shining in the palace like a Persian jewel, lay hidden Hadassah, a Jewish root that could never be uprooted. Her true name meant myrtle, a resilient plant that blooms even in the desert. What a perfect symbol. While the world saw only a queen, Mordecai knew. She was a daughter of Israel, concealed like treasure in enemy territory. Have you ever wondered how many Hadassahs walk among us? People whose true identity runs deeper than eyes can see. But why such secrecy? Mordecai wasn't paranoid. He knew the danger. In those days, being Jewish in exile was like walking on thin ice. One misstep and poof, you'd vanish. Esther 2 verse 10 records his crucial command. Do not reveal your people or your family. This was survival. Haman wasn't yet in power, but the poison of anti-Semitism already pulsed through the empire's veins. Sometimes silence isn't cowardice. It's wisdom in wartime. Here's a fascinating detail. Esther never lied about who she was. She simply didn't announce it. There's a vast difference between hiding the truth and distorting it. Mordecai taught her to navigate ambiguity without losing her essence. Anyone who's had to temper their faith at work or school understands this. It's not about denial, but discernment when and how to speak. After all, even Jesus said, "Be wise as serpents," Matthew 10 verse 16. Imagine the daily tension. Waking as a queen, but sleeping as a clandestine Jew. Wearing royal robes while carrying a heart full of unspoken prayers. Esther lived what we now call a double life. Yet her character never split. Here's a lesson for our age of social masks. Authenticity doesn't mean reckless exposure. Can you stay true to your values even when no one's watching? And then, the inevitable happened. Haman rose to power, and his hatred for Jews became royal decree. Suddenly, Hadassah's secret was no longer just about protection. It was about the fate of an entire people. Mordecai felt the weight of the moment. That hidden identity had a greater purpose. What if your secrets, your gifts, your story, your faith are also in waiting for such a time as this? The danger arrived like a silent earthquake. Haman, the king's new right-hand man, decreed the extermination of every Jew in the empire. This wasn't just hate speech. It was law, signed and sealed with the royal ring, Esther 3. While the city of Susa reeled in confusion, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth. What do you do when evil suddenly erupts in your life? Run away? Freeze? Or, like Mordecai, choose to fight even when the odds seem impossible? Mordecai's message to Esther still echoes today. Do not think that because you are in the palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Esther 4 verses 13 to 14. These words are a soul-shaking wake-up call. How many of us hold strategic positions, at work, in our families, in society, yet fail to realize God has been positioning us behind the scenes for this exact moment? Esther's response became legendary. Go, gather all the Jews, fast for me, do not eat or drink for 3 days. I in my attendance will fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. Esther 4 verse 16. 3 earth-shattering lessons here. 1. She didn't act alone. She mobilized a support network. 2. She prepared spiritually fasting. 3. She embraced total risk. When was the last time you made a decision requiring this level of biblical courage? Notice the stark contrast. Haman trusted in political power, but Esther relied on the invisible. While he built gallows for Mordecai, she built an altar in her heart. Here's a truth that transcends centuries. Humanity's greatest enemies always underestimate the power of a praying remnant. You may lack influence, money, or status, but if you have faith in times of crisis, you're already one step ahead. Now comes the climax. As death decrees spread to provinces, Esther prepared for the riskiest banquet in history. Everything hinged on one moment. A single breath of favor before the king. What she didn't know, while she fasted, God was moving behind the scenes. The king suffered a sleepless night. Mordecai's past deed went unrewarded, and Haman was about to be hoisted by his own petard. When you take that first step of faith, the universe conspires on your behalf. The decisive day came. Esther, after 3 days of fasting, dressed in her finest royal robes, but her true garment was biblical courage that few could match. By entering the inner court unsummoned, she broke Persian law, an offense punishable by death. But here's the masterstroke. Instead of making her plea outright, she invited the king and Haman to a banquet. Why this brilliant move? Because wisdom often lies in perfect timing, and Esther knew that hearts softened by good food are more open to hard truths. At the first banquet, Esther built suspense. Tomorrow, I will reveal my request. Meanwhile, God worked behind the scenes in spectacular fashion. The king, unable to sleep, ordered the royal chronicles read and discovered Mordecai had never been rewarded for saving his life. Meanwhile, Haman, bloated with pride, ordered gallows built for Mordecai. Divine irony. The man plotting murder was unknowingly digging his own grave. Ever noticed how pride always precedes a fall? At the second banquet, the truth exploded. If I have found favor with you, your majesty, spare my life and the lives of my people, for we have been sold to destruction. Esther 7 verses 3-4. Notice her genius strategy. Esther doesn't lead with accusations, but with an appeal. And when the king demands, who is responsible? She drops the bombshell. The adversary is this wicked Haman. In an instant, the hunter became the hunted. Some truths aren't optional. They're moral obligations. The ending is cinematic. Haman, who schemed to hang Mordecai, ended up swinging from his own gallows. The death decree against the Jews was overturned. And the most stunning part? God isn't mentioned once in the book of Esther. Yet his handprints are on every detail. This teaches us that hidden miracles unfold even without neon signs flashing God at work here. Your life may be full of these quiet signs. You just need eyes to see them. Now for the crowning glory. The festival of Purim, established to celebrate this victory, is still observed by Jews today. But think deeper. If Esther had stayed silent, if Mordecai had bowed to Haman, if the people had abandoned their fast, everything would be different. It makes you wonder what stories of deliverance are waiting to unfold. If only someone dares to take the first step. Esther's story proves that divine providence operates even when invisible. Remarkably, God's name never appears in the book of Esther. Yet his fingerprints are everywhere, from Vashti's banishment to the king's sleepless night. This challenges us. How often do we dismiss events as luck or coincidence when they're actually hidden miracles? That job opportunity, that unexpected relationship, that door that suddenly opened. They might all be pieces of a divine puzzle. Esther's dual identity, Hadassah, the Jew/Esther queen, reveals a piercing truth. Social status should never erase spiritual roots. She could have fully assimilated as a Persian, but she chose to remember who she was. Here's a hard question. Have you ever downplayed your values to fit in? At work, school, or even among friends? Mordecai's warning to Esther applies to us. There comes a time when hiding who we are becomes betrayal of who we're called to be. Esther's bravery didn't appear out of thin air. It was cultivated. Before risking her life, she fasted and rallied her community. Esther 4 verse 16. This shatters a myth that faith is just positive thinking. True spirituality merges prayer with strategy, contemplation with action. Follow Esther's model. When facing crisis, first strengthen your spiritual foundation, then move with wisdom. Her 3-day fast altered history. Imagine what your spiritual discipline could unleash. Haman's downfall teaches a timeless lesson. Proverbs 16 verse 18. While he built gallows for Mordecai, God was engineering his ruin. This warns us. Be careful who you harm on your climb to the top. But it also comforts. If you're facing injustice like Mordecai did, remember, the same God who flipped the script for him is still in control today. Your enemies may be building a gallows, but heaven's carpenter has already prepared the tools to dismantle it. Purim isn't just a Jewish holiday. It's an eternal reminder. No human decree is final when God is orchestrating behind the scenes. A death sentence became a festival. Mourning turned to joy. Esther 9 verse 22. So here's the ultimate challenge. What death decrees are you facing? Sickness? Debt? Loneliness? Esther's story shouts, no crisis gets the last word when God is writing your story. But the question remains, will you, like Esther, act with courage, even when all seems lost? After diving deep into Esther's epic story, where do you fit in? Maybe you're not Queen of Persia, but you got your palace, your workplace, campus, or family, where you're positioned to make a difference. So ask yourself, are you playing it safe or ready to risk it all? This isn't just history. It's for such a time as this moment. Grab a pen and split a page. Cross swords left side, your Hadassah secrets, gifts, callings, or truths you've hidden. Skull and crossbones, right side. Your modern Hamans, fears, threats, or obstacles holding you back. Now stare at it and answer. What if you acted with Esther's unshakable courage? She felt fear too. If I perish, I perish. But moved anyway. Will you? If Esther had stayed silent, Purim wouldn't exist, and neither might the Jewish people today. So here's the kicker. How many victories haven't happened because you hesitated? Your voice, your platform, your influence, they're not accidents. Time's ticking. Will you speak up or watch the clock run out? Directed step 1. Name one area where you've been complacent. Collision step 2. Take one bold action. Start small. A text, a confession, a no to toxicity. Crown step 3. Watch for God behind the scenes moves. Esther's first move was just a dinner invite. Your banquet moment might be simpler than you think. Speech balloon, which Esther lesson hit you hardest? Light bulb, have you faced an Esther moment before? Your testimony could be someone else's lifeline. And if you're new here, smash that subscribe button. We unpack these hidden Bible gems weekly to fuel your faith revolution. Rock it. Backhand index pointing right, your turn. Comment, share, tag someone who needs this fire. Hashtag Esther Energy, hashtag for such a time as this.